Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So as you guys can see, for this video here I wanted to do the mid-year book tag. So I've been seeing this a lot from booktubers and I wanted to create my own. I did this video last year and I really enjoyed doing it, so I thought I would do it again for you guys this year. So I've written down all of the questions. All of the questions I have taken from Rachel Catherine's video, and I think she took a few extras from another girl called Katie's video. So there's probably going to be a mix of different questions. Some of the questions that Rachel did I cut out because they just didn't really apply to me, because for those of you who are new here, I don't rate my books. I just rate like whether I like or I disliked my books. I don't have like a star rating system. Been really enjoying making some book content, and I know that some of you guys have been really enjoying the book content. Thought this would be a nice video to kind of look back on and kind of see how my reading journey has gone. So without further ado, let's jump into this video. First question that we have is the best book that you have read so far this year. So all of these books that I'm recommending I have read between January and June. So I have 4 books that I picked that have been some of my top reads from this year. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This book I actually just finished last month in June, so as I'm filming this it is July. A story where you have the elites and the ordinaries. The elites have powers and the ordinaries do not. We have 2 main characters. We have a female main character and a male main character. Our female main character is an ordinary. She comes from the slums. She's very poor. She steals to make a living. And our male main character, he comes from the palace. He is royal. He is an elite, so he has powers. And they have a bit of a run-in, and then our female main character ends up competing in what are called trials, and these trials are full of elites, and the prince is also competing in this trial, and she basically just has to survive. This is the first book in the Powerless trilogy. The little novella Powerful just got released. Haven't read it yet, but I really want to. And the second book, Reckless, comes out this month as I'm filming this video. I loved this. I loved the writing in this. I think Lauren Roberts writes incredibly, and considering she is like 22, started writing this when she was 18, but honestly you cannot tell because the writing is just fantastic. If you enjoyed The Hunger Games, you will really enjoy this book, because it's kind of like Hunger Games but set in like a fantasy world, because this is a YA fantasy series. Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Maple Hills series after Icebreaker. Basically you are following Russ and Aurora, and they have a one-night stand and then they end up working at the same summer camp. So I read this in February in summertime, and it was just great. I loved the camp setting. I loved all the summery vibes. You do also have the found family. This one is The Desolations of Devil's Acre by Ransom Briggs. This is the last book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. Obviously I can't say what this book in particular is about without spoiling the rest of the series. You are following Jacob, and Jacob is kind of just like living an ordinary life, and then one day his grandfather dies and leaves him a cryptic message to find the lady in the loop. That then leads him on a quest to kind of uncover this kind of like fantasy secret world that lives alongside the like real world, where it involves Miss Peregrine and all of her peculiar children, and all of her peculiar children have powers and abilities and things that they shouldn't have, basically. I really love this book. It is told around these really strange old Polaroids which are 100% authentic. I honestly love the way that the series is written. It's very creative and very different from anything else that I have ever read. I also really like that no matter who you are reading this series, we all kind of have a very similar idea of how things are playing out. This one is technically classified as teen fiction, but it definitely reads more YA than teen. I was very sad to be closing this world because these characters genuinely feel like my friends, but it was such a good ending to the series as well. And you kind of have like different plots and things that run through all of the different books, but with one overarching plot throughout the whole series. So it's just written very well. And then the last book that has been one of my favorite books from 2024 is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This is the first book in the Imperium series, And basically you are following Violet, and Violet really wants to be a scribe. She has trained her whole life and she is at this war college. Her mum is like the mayor person of this war college, and her mum is basically like, no daughter of mine will be a scribe, she will be a dragon rider. So the dragon riders are kind of like the military of this world, and scribes are the people who like write down the history. Violet has to compete in these kind of like trials to become a dragon rider, and you basically have to survive, and they're like really intense trials because they obviously want to like prepare them for like enemy threats and stuff like that. And Violet is just this very passive girl. Really enjoyed it. A very easy fantasy to get into. It is a little bit spicy, but it's not as bad as people make it out to be. The best sequel. So I'm gonna try and recommend different books for different questions, but obviously for this question I could recommend Wildfire and also Desolations of Devil's Acre, War. So this is the third book in the ACOTAR series. I actually started this in December of last year but finished it in January of this year. Obviously I can't say too much of what actually happens in this book without spoiling the rest of the series. ACOTAR is a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. Started off as YA, now it's become adult, but it's in the YA section at the library. But would highly recommend ACOTAR. Obviously it is very popular on the internet, but it is popular for good reason. Very easy to understand. There are a lot of characters, but it's written very well, and Sarah J Maas just writes incredibly. New release that you have not read yet, and that has to be A Tempest of Tea. Now I don't know how to pronounce this author's name. I received this book for my birthday a couple of months ago and I'm yet to read it, but I'm really excited to read it. Basically you are following this lady who owns a tea shop by day, but at night it turns into like a blood house for vampires, and I think she makes a deal with the vampires to like help them out with something. That's kind of all that I know. This book here I believe is going to be a series as well, but this obviously just came out this year, so this is the only book that we have as of right now, but I'm really excited to get into this. An anticipated release that you have for the second half of the year, and the one that I am most excited about is Daydream by Hannah Grace. So this is the third book in the Maple Hills series. This book follows Henry, and Henry was one of my favorite characters in Icebreaker, so I'm really excited. This book was supposed to come out in June, but it got pushed back to September, which is so annoying, but I'm really looking forward to it, and the cover is just the cutest thing ever. The biggest surprise from this year. So I have a good surprise and a bad surprise. So one book that I liked and one book that I didn't like. My good surprise has to go to Crazy Love by Frances Chan. This one is a Christian non-fiction book, but it just talks about the love of God, and I don't know what Frances Chan put in this book, but I have never ever connected with a Christian non-fiction book so much than I did with this one here. Like, I absolutely loved this book, and I definitely think that there is a lot in this book to get out of. It's really short, but it's got a lot of like wisdom and things in it. And then my bad surprise that I have from this year in a book that I did not like is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I really wanted to like this book because, again, it's a really popular book. I feel like it's one that a lot of people talk about, but I just could not get into it. I don't know if part of it was because it was set in like a very old time, which I don't read a lot of books set then, but even so, I just feel like they overcomplicated ideas a lot. I was just kind of bored. The only thing that I really enjoyed was the whole like circus element of the book, but it was just a struggle for me to get through, and it was one of those books that like I just was not looking forward to picking up at all, which was a real shame. A new favorite author to you, so I have to say Lauren Roberts as well. Loved her writing. I read my first Emily Henry book this year, and I love the way that she writes. I can see why a lot of people really like her books, but I read Beach Read in January, and yeah, just loved Emily Henry's writing. And then the other author that I have really enjoyed her writing is Cassandra Clare. So I have read the first two books in the Mortal Instruments series. This is the first book, City of Bones. I love the way that she writes. Again, this is a YA kind of like urban fantasy series. Very easy to understand. The world is not complicated. I just feel like you can really feel the like friendship and the tension and the romance and things that she puts in these books. Your new fictional crush. So I have a couple of guys in books that I really liked. Owen in Confess by Colleen Hoover. This book here was my sister and I's book club pick for May. And I just feel like Owen was a little bit misunderstood but had a really nice heart. You can tell that like he really cares about the people that he loves and he will fight for them a lot, which I really liked. And then obviously I have to mention Gus from Beach Read. Such a sweetheart, and yeah, just he's great. Book that made you cry. And I honestly only have one book. There is only one book that I have read this year that has made me cry. I do not cry very easily in books. If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. I don't have a physical copy of this book because I borrowed it from the library, but my sister has this book, but she only reads books once, so I'm kind of just waiting for her to read it to then get rid of it so that I can have her copy, basically. But it was very sad. We're following Autumn and Finn, and they were like childhood best friends, and then something happened to the point where they don't speak anymore, and you're kind of just like following their lives, I guess, in high school. It is written very YA. At the beginning of the book you kind of have like, you kind of get told the event that happens, but you don't really know how you got to that, and you don't really know the aftermath. And as you read through it, it's really heartbreaking, and it broke me, honestly. I was finishing this at night and I was in bed with my husband, and yeah, I just bawled. A book that made you happy. Now this one, I could recommend a lot of things, honestly, but I think just a book that like I just felt just so content reading has to be Beach Read by Emily Henry. You are following January and August, or Gus, which is quite funny that they're both named after months, but they are both writers, and basically January escapes to this small town. She's also packing up her dad's beach house, and she's also trying to write a book, but she's kind of got like a bit of writer's block, feeling a little bit uninspired, so she's just hoping that like this time away will help her to, I guess, get rid of the writer's block. And she encounters Gus, who I think she used to know back in the day. I think they went to high school together, and he is also a like well-known author. And January normally writes romance books and Gus writes literary fiction, and so they decide to swap genres for the summer, and then they both like take each other on these like, not like dates, but like adventures to kind of like do like research and stuff for the books. I was literally reading this on the beach in summer, and it just, yeah, it was just such a good time. The most beautiful book that you have bought this year, and this of course has to go Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Like, this is just such a stunning cover. Like, I love all the like mushrooms, the book, the leaves, the key, just everything. This book here I haven't read yet, just following Emily Wilde, and she is just writing an Encyclopedia of Fairies, so she's just kind of going about learning, writing things down. Hopefully I'm in kind of the same position. I just had to get up because there was one more book that I wanted to have for this next question. Books that you need to read before the end of the year. So I have got a little stack here which are kind of like my ones that are on like my immediate kind of list. Is The Ark by Ben Oliver. This is the last book in the Loop trilogy. The first book is The Loop, the second book is The Block. I don't know too much about what happens in this because I haven't read it, but basically The Loop follows Luca, who is a prisoner on death row. He is in a prison called The Loop, which is run by AI, where you are basically confined in a cell 23 hours a day. You have 1 hour of sunlight per day, but you can't see any of the other prisoners because there's all these like concrete walls between all of the cells. You can like talk to them, but you just can't see them. One day the entire system glitches, and it's kind of like escape as fast as you can out of this prison. In this prison they were having new technology tested on them, and things called delays, which if you take a delay it means that your death date gets pushed back, and the aim is to try and like enhance life outside of the prison. But there's also like rumors of rebellion outside of the prison, so there's just like a lot going on. Very fast-paced series. It's a YA dystopian series and gives very much like Maze Runner and Matrix vibes. So if you enjoyed those, you will really enjoy this series. I just really want to finish this series. I started it last year, Assassin's Blade by Sarah J Maas. So I am currently reading the last book in the ACOTAR series because I wanted to finish ACOTAR before starting Throne of Glass. And I'm going to start with Assassin's Blade because it's the prequel. Obviously, I know there's different reading orders that you can read it in, but this is just my personal way that I would like to start the series. If I enjoy the series, then I might reread it and read this third, but yeah, I really want to start the Throne of Glass series this year. The Brothers Hawthorne by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So this is another book in the Inheritance Games kind of like world. It's not part of the original trilogy, but it's kind of like an add-on where you are following Grayson and Jameson. This was a new release that came out last year that I just never ever read. But I know that we're getting The Grandest Game, which is another book kind of in this world, I think in August. And then we're also getting another book, I think at the end of this year or beginning of next year, also in this world. So I really just want to kind of get up to date before I end up 3 books behind. So this is another one, Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. So this is like the second book in the Magnolia Parks like series and world. I read Magnolia Parks for the first time last year and really enjoyed it, but I just haven't picked up any more books in that series yet. I've got all of them, so I really need to read them. But I really want to read a Daisy Hates book and see how I find it basically. So in this book you are following Daisy Hates, Julian and Christian. And then the last book that is kind of on my radar for this year is Indigo Ridge by Devney Perry. So this is technically the first book in the Edens series. However, I did read Christmas and Quincy last year in December, which was a prequel, and I really enjoyed that book. I read it in a day. It was just a really short novella, and I really want to get into the series because it's kind of set in a small town. All I know is you're following the chief of police who has come to this community, and I think she ends up sleeping with the town's founder, and then there's a woman who's found dead on the Edens property. And so she's the one that's kind of investigating that. So very interesting. Any rereads that you want to do this year, which I have decided that this year so far I am not going to be doing any rereads, but I just think this year there are so many books on my radar that I think I'm just going to have a year where I don't do any rereads unless I desperately want to reread something. But as of right now, as me filming this video in July, there are no rereads that I want to do. Books that you have been putting off. So again, I have a few books on my radar that I have been putting off. A couple of them are on my 24 books to read in 2024, so we'll see if I get to them. This book is The Swarm by Frank, I think it's Shazing? I don't know, I could be wrong. This sounds interesting, but the only thing that puts me off is this is such a long book. Longer than ACOTAR, which is saying a lot. This is 881 pages, and this is like a science fiction book, which I just feel like is really long. But this one is to do with like the ocean, and the ocean isn't acting like it should, basically. A group of scientists who are trying to figure out what is going on, and I don't know, I just feel like a science fiction book does not need to be 880 pages. A uni student trying to read a long book is actually quite difficult. Gone by Michael Grant. This again is on my 24 books to read in 2024. I honestly don't know why I keep putting this off, because I genuinely think I will really enjoy this series. It's basically where all the adults like just suddenly up and disappear, and all of the kids are trying to just figure out where they've gone and how to get them back, basically. Like, I honestly don't know why I'm putting this off. Again, this is long too, so maybe that's why I've been putting it off. Like 560 pages. And then the last book that I have been putting off that I want to read this year is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine. This one is by Gail Honeyman. This is again quite a popular book at the moment. I have actually owned this book on my shelf for so long, but the thing that puts me off this is because when I bought this book, the lady at the bookstore said to me that she read this and it was really slow and really boring. So I was like, cool. And ever since then, that was like literally about like probably like 6 years ago or something, and I've still not wanted to pick it up because of that. Saying that, I just watched Harriet's video where she read this and she absolutely loved this book. So she kind of sparked a little bit in me to read this book. It's honestly not long. It's like 385 pages. So pretty standard for like a YA romance. But I don't know. I feel like I'm putting it off. If you guys have read this, can you let me know your thoughts down below? Because I feel like I need convincing to read this. But I really, really want to read it. I know that it is more of a like a character study rather than like a plot driven book, which sometimes I love because the Magnolia Parks universe is more character studies, same with the Addicted Calloway series, and I've loved both of those so far. Book that you love that has mixed reviews. Now I did have to do a little bit of looking on Goodreads for this. I don't really use Goodreads. Legally Blonde, this one is by Amanda Brown. This on Goodreads has terrible reviews. Like the first few reviews that I scrolled through, people were like, I did not like this book, I did not like this book, I did not like this book, and I really enjoyed this book. I don't know if it's because I'm studying law at uni that I just could connect with Elle so much, and I like understood the jargon that if you weren't studying law would just go straight over your head. I really enjoyed this story. I think she grew a lot. I apologize if you can hear that wind outside, it's so loud. She kind of just like learnt who she was and kind of figured herself out, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I obviously love the movie. I've watched the movie multiple times. Also a super short read, so take that what you will. Basically, I feel like everyone knows what Legally Blonde is about, but if you don't, you're following Elle Woods, and she comes from this like sorority. She has this boyfriend who comes from like a very rich kind of wealthy family, and she thinks that they're about to get engaged, but then he breaks off the engagement right before he goes to law school and basically just tells Elle that he wants someone serious. And so Elle is then determined to get into law school and become a lawyer so that she can be like good enough for him, but in the process she kind of learns more about herself and who she is. Series that you want to finish before the end of the year. So obviously I've already touched on a few of these, but ACOTAR series, I currently don't have the first book with me. My sister is currently borrowing it, but like I said, I'm currently reading the last ACOTAR book, so that is A Court of Silver Flames, and so far it's good. I'm not very far into it because I just started it yesterday, but yeah, I would really love to finish off the ACOTAR world this year. Imperium series, as of right now, there is only 2 books that are out. I just have Iron Flame left to read. Obviously I mentioned before that I want to finish the Loop trilogy, so I just have the Arc left. Maple Hills series, but obviously I will do that when Daydream comes out because I've read Icebreaker last year, I read this year, and I would love to read Daydream this year as well. And then the last series that I would love to finish is, I really want to finish the second book in the If He Had Been With Me duology. I think it's called If Only I Had Told Her, and I'm guessing it's told from the guy's point of view, so I would love to read that and finish that this year. And then the last question that I'm going to do in this video is, do you think you'll reach your reading goal, and how close are you? So I had a few reading goals from the start of this year, so I've pulled out my little reading journal. So my reading goals for 2024 were to read 55 books, to read 5 classics, to read 5 Christian non-fiction, to cut down my thriller genre by half, and then to continue to read 1 new book that I have bought recently, and then followed by 1 older book that I have owned on my shelf for a while. So in terms of reading 55 books, as of right now I have read 33, so I feel like that is pretty good. So I feel like I'm very close to reaching that goal. In terms of reading 5 classics, I have not read any classics so far. There is one that I want to read at Christmas time, but we'll see if through the rest of the year if I read any classics. In terms of Christian books, I have already achieved that goal. 7 Christian non-fiction books so far. To cut down my thriller genre by half, honestly, I feel like I have not done this. I have not been reading a lot of thriller. So like, this is my current shelf that I did in my reading journal spread, and my thrillers kind of start from the guest list. So out of all of these ones here, I've only read this one, and this one. I've only read 3. So I would say I have not done that, and I don't know if I am going to get that done by the end of this year. In terms of reading one new book followed by one older book, I have done this some months, and some months I have not. So I feel like that one probably not as well as I did last year, but I've still been trying to read older books followed by new books. So there we go, guys. That is my completed mid-year book tag. I really hope you guys enjoyed hearing about all of these books, and hopefully may have potentially got a new recommendation of a book to read. If you guys have read any of these books, let me know your thoughts down below. Obviously no spoilers for the ones that I haven't read, but if you guys enjoyed this book video, then please make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Please make sure to turn on the notifications and check out my social media. It's always linked down below in the description box. If you guys want to watch more book related videos, I have done a whole playlist on my channel called Reading, so I will leave that playlist down below for you guys. I'm also going to film a mid-year reading wrap up. I'm actually going to film that today, but you guys probably won't see that for maybe a couple of weeks, so stay tuned because that will have all of the books that I have read from the first 6 months of the year. But yeah, I think that's everything, and I shall see you guys in my next video. Bye!